Archaic Records.
Hey, what is up, everybody? It's Archaic Records here with you again. My name is Jamie, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee, and today I'm going to be taking a look at my favorite record by the greatest band ever to come out of Liverpool, England, and my second favorite band of all time. This record came out in 1984, produced by Gil Norton. The album is called Ocean Rain by British post-punksters ECHO and the Bunnymen. ECHO and the Bunnymen formed in Liverpool, England in 1978, releasing their debut album Crocodiles in 1980. Now, to me, Crocodiles is probably the second greatest debut album of all time, only behind the 1984 debut album by the Smiths, or at least those are my two favorite I've ever heard. I admit I haven't never heard all the debut albums of all time, but those are my two favorite. In 1981, the band released their sophomore effort, Heaven Up Here. And in 1983, the band released their third album, Porcupines. Now, at one point or another, I'm going to talk about all of those records at length on this channel, because ECHO and the Bunnymen are my second favorite band of all time, only behind Morrissey and the Smiths. But I thought to start it off, I'd go with my favorite record of theirs, their fourth album, which did come out in 1984, produced by Gil Norton, as I mentioned, Ocean Rain. Now, I first became familiar with ECHO and the Bunnymen probably as a little kid, either through my exposure to them on MTV, or as a lot of people my age did, in the John Hughes movies of the mid-1980s, movies that most people of my generation at the time, and probably still do, worship. Those movies seem to be unifying features of our childhood. No matter who you were or what kind of background you came from, everybody could kind of agree that those John Hughes movies were the greatest thing of all time, at least at that point in our lives. My fandom for ECHO and the Bunnymen, my legitimate fandom for ECHO and the Bunnymen, probably didn't start until around the early 1990s. Of course, I always knew who they were, and as a kid, I was always struck by their name. I thought their name was really funny when I was a little kid. And I remember thinking, why would a band name themselves ECHO and the Bunnymen? That's so weird. But it wasn't really until I was really through a friend of mine that I really became actually a fan of the band. Like I said, it was probably the early 1990s. And I had made a friend through work. And he and I were basically like musical comrades. We totally had very similar tastes in music. We agreed on most things. And I remember a lot of times riding around in his car, going around to hit different record stores and toy stores and comic book stores and all the things that nerds like to do back then. He would not always, but he would often jam ECHO and the Bunnymen in his car. And that was really when I really started to take notice of how amazing this band was. And at the time, I remember I bought a couple of their CDs, and I just really liked them. They were a band that I've been listening to really since the early 1990s. But for me, everything didn't really gel until the first time I saw the band live. And at that point, the band just absolutely blew me away. And I have been a diehard fan ever since. I do believe that this is one of the greatest live bands of all time. And after I went and saw them live the first time, I did have a few of their albums, and I did own this one on CD. But at the time after seeing them live, I just went back and I just bought everything I could possibly get my hands on, and they just instantly became pretty much my second favorite band of all time. A lofty perch, which they have enjoyed for quite some time. I have seen this band live probably, countless times. I don't even know how many times I've seen them live at this point. And to me, they are consistently one of the greatest live bands I've ever seen. Ian McCulloch's voice is just absolutely incredible live. Will Sargent, who I think is one of the greatest guitar players, one of the most underrated and unsung guitar players of all time also. I think that seeing this band live just really opened my eyes. Now, I've seen the band, like I said, many times over the years. Almost without exception, the band has been absolutely amazing live. Unfortunately, I've only seen the band in its current state. I've never got a chance to see the band with all four of the original classic members, with Ian McCulloch, Will Sargent, Les Pattinson, and Peter DeFreitas. Contemporarily, the band pretty much just tours as Ian McCulloch and Will Sargent. And Les Pattinson came back when the band reformed in 1997. But as of right now, as far as I know, at least he hasn't been in the band for quite some while. I would say almost without exception, every time I've seen this band, they've been incredible live. The one exception I would say was I went and saw this band several years ago at the Mountain Winery in Saratoga, California. I was living in Oakland still at that time. And this was the tour that they were playing when they were playing with the Violent Femmes. And I remember when that tour was announced, and I like the Violent Femmes, for the record. I'm a Violent Femmes fan. I mean, they can't sniff Echo and the Bunnymen, in my opinion. But I am a Violent Femmes fan. And they were playing that tour with the Violent Femmes. So we went to go see them at this place called the Mountain Winery in Saratoga, California. And just right when we got there, I could tell that this was not really going to be the greatest show. Just based on the audience, if for no other reason, this was not your typical Echo and the Bunnymen, or even Violent Femmes for that matter, crowd. This was very much like a winery type crowd. Nobody really knew who the Echo and the Bunnymen were. And as the time of the show was approaching, I remember that it was still very hot and sunny outside. I'd never seen Echo and the Bunnymen in the daylight. It just seems weird that they even play in the daylight. But I remember they came out. Brian Ritchie from the Violent Femmes came out and introduced the opening act, who played for probably a half an hour. And after the opening act finished, it was still light and hot outside. And I realized they were setting up for Echo and the Bunnymen. And the band came out, and it was, like I said, it was still light and hot outside. People weren't even paying any attention. People were just eating their dinners and drinking their wines and chit-chatting amongst themselves. And you could tell, you wouldn't have to be exactly a detective to figure out that Ian McCulloch was not happy about the situation. And they basically just kind of hurried through the set. I remember some woman sitting next to us asked us, "Who is this bunny man?" And I was like, oh, man. But that was probably the one exception of a show that I've been to. The one time I've seen them that they weren't absolutely amazing. You could just kind of tell that Ian McCulloch was not in the mood that day. And honestly, I've heard horror stories of seeing Echo the Bunnymen live where, you get the moody, grumpy Ian McCulloch. I never have, honestly. I've honestly, every time I've seen him live, he's been absolutely spot on. My favorite time seeing the band live ever was probably the last time I saw them, which was right before COVID. My wife and I were getting ready to leave the Bay Area, and Echo and the Bunnymen were coming to San Francisco, and they were playing the Masonic, which is, if you know San Francisco, is a relatively big venue, but not completely unintimate, but it is a bigger room than I'd usually seen them in. And I remember for some reason, my wife had bought the tickets for us, and I remember that she was upset about the tickets she got because she said, I think she got them for me for my birthday or something, but she was like, I could only get balcony tickets. This is going to be terrible. Oh my God, I feel so awful. This is going to be terrible. This is going to be the worst show ever. And that night kind of served for us as kind of a informal going away party because, like I said, we were getting ready to leave San Francisco. And so we were hanging out with some friends, and the whole night my wife was just feeling very bad about it. She kept mentioning to our friends how we got really terrible tickets, and I was going to be very upset, which I'm not usually like that. I'm not not that high maintenance of a bitch. And at a certain point, I sort of began to grow suspicious. I was like, I wonder why she's overselling this point so hard. And as the show began to approach, our group of friends sort of dispersed. We all had tickets in it was a seated venue, so we all had tickets, other places. And as her and I approached our seats, we started walking down through the main floor of the auditorium, walking up towards the front. And I asked her, I was like, "Hey, don't we have to go up to the balcony? Where were we going?" She's like, "Oh yeah, we do, but we have to go around this way and around this way." And I was like, "Okay," just following blindly. That's kind of like what I do. And it turned out that she got us tickets right in the front row, pretty much center. And then That was the best show I ever saw of Echo and the Bunnymen. Not only because the seats were in the front row. I mean, I could basically smell Ian McCulloch's cigarette breath on my face. It was absolutely amazing. But the band was just amazing that night. I actually did have to snap a couple of pictures, sly pictures. I'm not usually the camera out at shows guy. But in that instance, being that close to one of my heroes, I had to take a couple sly ones. I mean, I'm sorry. I guess I'm just a hypocrite. But I very rarely am a picture camera out at shows guy. And if you're one of those people that goes to shows who has your camera out the whole time, bugging the poor saps sitting behind you, I would just like to tell you that there is a hot corner in hell waiting for you when you get there. Now, I'm not opposed to people taking a picture or two and then slipping your phone into your pocket and enjoying the show, what you're seeing with your own eyes. But nobody wants to sit there and watch your filming of a show, and nobody's watching your Facebook Live, just so you know. But I haven't run into that problem many times, but I did have to take a couple of slide pictures. I know I'm being hypocritical right now, but I really don't give a good goddamn. Generally speaking, if I had to pick sort of a grievance about seeing Echo and the Bunnymen live, and this is very minor, this is a real nitpick, it would be that over the years, seeing them live as many times as I have, which is many, I would say the set list doesn't really alter that much. At least the shows I've been to. Now, occasionally they'll throw in a song here or a song there that you don't hear pretty much every time. But generally speaking, I would say that the set list for Echo and the Bunnymen shows is somewhat predictable. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, even if they're playing just a greatest hits set, to hear the greatest hits by these guys is a treat. You should feel grateful, which I always do. But like I said, that's just a very small complaint of mine. Basically, generally speaking, I think this is the second greatest band of all time. Kind of like the Smiths, although the Smiths are way up here and everybody else is down here, including Echo and the Bunnymen, who I absolutely love. They are easily my second favorite band of all time. I think Ian McCulloch is one of the greatest singers and songwriters of all time. I think he has an incredibly unique perspective. I think he has an incredibly unique voice. And the band, of course, after this record in 1984, the band put out their self-titled album in 1987, an album that people sort of affectionately refer to as the Grey Album. And the band dispersed in 1988 after the tour cycle of that record. And the band didn't officially come back until 1997. Of course, in 1995, there was an album by a band called Electrofiction, which I sort of consider to be the unofficial return of Echo and the Bunnymen. That album did not feature Les Pattinson, but it did feature Will Sargent and Ian McCulloch, and that's an album I really like too. At some point on these videos, I am going to rank the Echo and the Bunnymen albums. Oh, joy! But I really like the Electrofiction album. But when the band came back in 1997 with their album Evergreen, Ian McCulloch's voice had changed a lot. His voice has just aged a lot over the years in general. I actually really love the way his voice sounds now. Some people give him a hard time about the way his voice has aged. I actually really love his voice now. I love his voice in the 80s too. I just adore the way his voice has changed. It's so gravelly. It's just so cool. I mean, just superficially speaking, Ian McCulloch is just one of the coolest people ever. And then you have Will Sargent, who again I think is one of the most underrated, brilliant, amazing guitar players of all time. And then at least during the classic era of the band, I think you have an incredibly gifted and underrated rhythm section with bassist Will Pattinson and the late Peter DeFreitas on drums. Again, this is my second favorite band of all time. Not even close. Not saying they're close to the Smiths or Morrissey, because they're way up here. And the Echo and Bunnymen are probably down here. But I absolutely love this band. I'm going to talk about all of their records on this channel. But I thought I would start off by giving you a little snippet of my all-time favorite record of theirs. I mean, you can go through the tracks. I will say that To me, this record is just a life changer. If you only own one album of theirs, or if you want somewhere to start, I mean, this is the one right here. There's not a single bad song on this entire album. I don't even know if you could really say that there's a weakest song on this album. I just don't think it exists. But for me, side one starts off with my all-time favorite Echo and the Bunnymen song. The song is called Silver. Oh my God, I love that song. I mean, my favorite song by a band I absolutely am in love with. The song Silver. It's just perfect. Just perfect song. The second song is Nocturnal Me. Oh my God. Like I said, there's just nothing bad on this album. The third song is Crystal Days. That's a very well-known song. I love that song. That's a song they still mix into the live set occasionally. Silver, they really don't. I wish they did. I actually don't. Thinking about it, I don't think I've ever seen them play Silver in person. I don't think. I think I remember that, but I don't think I have. The next song is Yo-Yo Man. Oh my God, that song is dark. It's creepy. Again, Ian McCulloch's songwriting and his vocals. I mean, he is just in a league almost all by himself. Again, I think he is only behind Morrissey. I think he's the greatest songwriter ever. I think he would agree. Actually, I think he thinks he's the greatest songwriter ever, but that's okay. It's not a problem with me. Side one ends with the song Thorn of Crowns. Oh my God. Just this album. I mean, just amazing. Again, there's not a bad song on this entire record. There's really not even... You can't really even say there's a bad second on this entire record. Again, what's the weakest song? I don't even know. Side 2 begins with one of the most iconic songs in the Echo and the Bunnymen catalog, The Killing Moon. It's funny if you ever see Echo and the Bunnymen live. Ian McCulloch always introduces this as the greatest song ever written. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that, but it's hard to disagree with that. And for being such a huge hit, this is a song I never get tired of. Now, there are songs in the Echo and the Bunnymen catalog that I could probably never hear again that are big songs, namely Lips Like Sugar, which I don't hate that song. It's just I just have heard it way too many times. And I think there's such better songs in the catalog. But honestly, I never get tired of Killing Moon. And when they play that song live, I mean, it makes, honestly, like, this is going to sound hokey, but it makes the hair on your neck stand up. Just an absolutely beautiful, iconic, amazing song. I never get tired of it. I never get tired of anything off this record, honestly. I don't care how many times I've heard it. It's absolutely unbelievable. Another big song after that is Seven Seas. That was a big MTV hit for them. Also, I Don't Care. I love it. I actually love the video for this song a lot, too. Just amazing song. Again, that was another big hit for them, or as big as they got. But I just love it. The next song is My Kingdom. That song is just flawless. That's actually one of my favorite songs on the entire record. And the album ends with, I guess if you had to say maybe the weakest song on this record, and that is that's getting loose with the language here. If you had to pick maybe weakest song, I don't even know about that, but it's the title track, Ocean Rain, and holy smokes, man, that song is still good. I mean, saying it's the weakest song on this record that's being pretty harsh, honestly, because it's a great song. I mean, this album only has 9 songs on it, but every song on it is absolutely amazing. For me, one of the biggest quandaries or mysteries to me surrounding Echo and the Bunnymen is how this band actually didn't become more popular than they are. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because I think that their place in history is secure forever. And I actually kind of like the fact that this band is kind of a cult band now, because I know the people that are into this band absolutely love this band. And I feel like either you love this band or you're kind of like not in the know. But it'll always be a mystery to me how this band didn't end up. I'm not talking about like U2 level, but how this band didn't end up on the same level as bands like REM or even the Smiths, honestly. And they're not as good as the Smiths. I mean, let's not get crazy here. But I've always been curious as to why this band kind of got to a certain level and then it kind of plateaued. Because this band, again, to me is the second greatest band of all time. They should be way more celebrated, way more appreciated than they are. Although I do admit I kind of like the fact that they're sort of a cult band. But anyway, if you haven't gone back and checked out Ocean Rain or any of their albums, really, but especially the albums in the first era of the band, I would highly recommend it. This is the best one, in my opinion. My second favorite band of all time. I'm going to talk about this band a lot. And coming up very soon, I have a feeling on this channel I will be doing an Echo and the Bunnymen ranking. You're just about to wet yourself with anticipation. Anyway, go back and check out this record again. Check out anything by this band. I absolutely love Echo and the Bunnymen. Second favorite band of all time. And a band I've been listening to religiously probably since the early 1990s. All right, man. Anyway, thanks for checking out this video. This is Archaic Records. My name is Jamie, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Check back every week for Morrissey Monday, my weekly celebration of all things Morrissey and the Smiths. Just a little heads up for you, I'm going to be out of town this weekend. So there may or may not be a Morrissey Monday this Monday. I will try to record one before I head out of town. If not, I know, darn. If not, I will be back next week for sure. Remember to check out and support your local record stores. Listen to Echo and the Bunnymen. Thanks again so much for checking this out. I'll talk to you next time.